and device use. Let's speak now to child psychologist Catherine Hallissey in Cork in Ireland. Catherine, great to have you back here on the News Hour. This was meant to be temporary. It's beginning to look rather permanent. So parents who are worried about their teenagers or their young children, what can they do?
Yes, I think that's one of the most important things to remember is that when all of this started, we all thought it was going to be temporary. And lots of parenting experts said, you know, you can just relax your rules for a little while. This is an emergency and we can reevaluate when things are back to normal. And now we're almost a year later, and so many parents have been in touch with me to say that they wished they hadn't actually relaxed their rules and that now they're seeing the negative effects. And you mentioned the digital detox. So there are a number of things that you can do. You can have certain times of day where there is no tech allowed, or you can even pick one day a week where there's no tech allowed. And if you're talking about a true addiction, then you need to look at something like a full-on digital detox for 2 to 4 weeks with no tech use. Now, it's important to remember that most people aren't fully addicted. They are just engaged in significant overuse. So if it's just overuse, you can really look at evaluating when and where your children are using technology and then adjust accordingly.
OK, for those people who are properly addicted, is it fair to say they're addicted to the hit of dopamine that people get? Your body generates it when you look at that website, when you look at your Instagram or your Facebook, and you get that like, you get that little wave icon coming up, and that's the thing that causes the addiction. But for anyone worried about the symptoms, either in somebody else or in themselves indeed, how do they recognise whether they are addicted or not?
Well, in a true addiction, it's where not only do you enjoy doing the activity, but it's interfering with typical everyday life. So your social interaction, your leisure activities, and even infiltrating into your work. So, you know, the kinds of symptoms you might see in your children is irritability when you were trying to limit their time. Now, you might say that all teenagers are irritable when their parents are limiting their time, but this is just that other level, this agitation when you're away from your device, or this irritability if somebody is calling you to do something that you might typically have enjoyed in the past. So you're looking for changes in behavior. And look, we know that most of us are overusing our devices. And what has happened now is children's leisure time activities have changed because they're not able to go out and play sports. They're not able to meet in person. So everybody was thinking, okay, how can we keep the social interaction going? But now we have had this repeated, prolonged period of hyperstimulation in this digital world, and that has really taken over. And when you're engaged in these hyperstimulating activities, it can make other activities seem rather understimulating and boring. So things that you may have previously enjoyed
Catherine,
seem just too low interest.
Pardon me for interrupting you there. Are any of the platforms or the tech companies saying anything about this to people like yourself? In as much as, you know, 40 years ago at the beginning of Silicon Valley, when that started getting really powerful, it was about people building hardware and software. That was the product. Nowadays, because it's all platform-based and app-based, we are the product, the users are the product, because the platforms want to expose us to advertising. That's why they drag you in and they want to keep you there. So there's got to be some responsibility here with the Zuckerbergs, the Facebooks, the Instagrams and the TikToks.
And, you know, I think that's the next great debate. You know, it's our attention is the commodity. And we as individuals, we as parents, we really, really need to think very carefully about how we protect this most precious commodity. You know, what we allow to infiltrate into our homes, we need to be incredibly intentional with our digital use. And I think you are very correct that the companies have a huge responsibility, a social and moral responsibility to begin to address this. This is, I believe, the next big wave, this huge problem area that we are facing as a society. because it's so much of it has been just this insidious nature of the way it has infiltrated homes accidentally, particularly within the last 12 months. Because, we all know that we need to monitor our children's use, but people relaxed those rules. And then the companies were seeing this huge increase, and they are gamifying excessive use. So with streaks and getting special rewards for extensive use. So what they're doing actually is rewarding maladaptive behavior. So it's not just about the dopamine hit that you mentioned earlier. That is definitely part of it. But it's this, we are using devices to numb our experiences and to numb our emotions. And, technology can be absolutely wonderful, but it's the indiscriminate use and the pervasive nature of how it's invading our lives, invading our leisure activities. That's where the issues lie.
A brave parent who switches off the Wi-Fi, but maybe then the teenagers will actually have a meal with you face to face. Catherine, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. We do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.